I want you to imagine a scenario. You're driving your Tesla to the MBD studio at 4 a.m. and you accidentally crash. You come out unscathed, but the car is totaled. Then a year later, you get a notification that your car is suddenly online again in Ukraine. This is what happened to an executive editor at CNBC, Jay Yarrow. And just before the weekend, it's opened this discourse around what happens to car parts in the wake of a crash. Neal, apparently this is a huge industry, buying total cars that can't be driven anymore in the US and selling them usually overseas where the laws are less stringent. But often the data stored in the car's electronics isn't wiped, and technically the new owners can access it, like they did in the instance above where Yarrow's Spotify account was still being accessed. It's kind of crazy, but also a little scary, Neal.
This guy was listening to Drake.
I know.
In Ukraine. I really want to know who this is. He's cruising in southern Ukraine, a war-torn area, like cranking Drake on a Tesla that was totaled, so it's clearly very banged up.
Yarrow can see his Spotify account being used, so they do know that whoever has a car does have a penchant for Drake.
Yeah, no, this kind of is raising a lot of privacy risks that a lot of experts have been warning for a while, where if your car is connected to the internet, which every single car is now because we treat it as our phone, we log into our Spotify account, we log into our Google account for Google Maps or Apple CarPlay. I don't know what that is, but no, so you have these, you're basically using your computer, your phone, your car as a phone or a computer. And when you're done using that thing, you need to log out.
Right.
So you literally need to log out of your car. And this guy didn't have a chance. And then someone basically went into his car and is using all of his internet services. It's a huge privacy risk. Falls into the wrong hands. All of your data is compromised.
Yeah, and it's not just a Tesla thing. Like, as you said, every single car is connected to the internet these days. But Tesla's response to this was a little ridiculous.
They were not prepared.
They were not prepared. They gave him a set of instructions that involved him obtaining the new car user's information and putting that into his old Tesla account in order to shut off the car. And he's like, how in the world am I supposed to get this person in Ukraine's information? Like, it's totally unfeasible. So a lot of privacy experts are saying there needs to be a remote wipe button, kind of similar to what Apple has for their Macs, their computers. You need to be able to slide a button, input your information, and say, delete my internet history, basically, because you're right, it's a huge safety risk. People were saying, imagine if you found a celebrity's cars or something, like it could be used for blackmail or even worse because you have like the information, their destination history. So this is a real problem, and part of the problem with cars moving more towards computers than actual cars.
The Ford GT sports car has more code in it than a Boeing 787.
It's ridiculous. I mean, my brother just did a summer internship at Toyota as a CS major, and their computer science, their data engineering teams are huge, like bigger than maybe their real engineering team. So shout out Toyota, shout out Henry. Hey, thanks for watching. And if you want more Morning Brew Daily, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And also check out the rest of our episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
New episodes drop at 7 a.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday, and you can email us at morningbrewdaily@morningbrew.com.